What is going on, YouTube people? Northeast Ohio Cards and Comics here for the weekly wrap up show, where we touch on any key news issues and dig into charts and graphs and market movers to see who and what has been moving and shaking in the sports card market. So, before we dive in, like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff down below. If you want to check out market movers, the link to that is down below. That is the tool that we use for all the data and all the charts and all the graphs. 20% off discount code down below. Let's touch on some newsy catch-up stuff, and then we will go ahead and dive into the various movers and shakers of the week. Busy week this week, in all honesty. On some personal channel update stuff, we hit 10K subs last weekend, just after the Sunday video posted last week. We hit 10K. Ripped the box of G.I. Joe, did a couple live streams this week. A lot of newsy stuff this week. We had the PSA price drop, literally out of nowhere. SGC, which I didn't do a video on this, at around the same time, SGC announced that they were extending their turnaround times a little bit, from about 2 weeks to about 4 weeks. I believe is what Peter had said, which is smart. Get out ahead of that now, because that was something I personally was very critical of them last year. So it's good to see them getting out ahead of turnaround time slowing down. So, sounds like they're still getting a lot of submissions in. And once again, we had the PSA price drop. To me, once again, circling back to the PSA price drop, the most interesting thing about that to me isn't so much the drop to 150. It's what does that set the prices going forward? Like if Express is 150 and Super Express is 300, when regular service comes back, what are we looking at? 75? My guess is 75. They seem to like to go these halvesies. Maybe they start at 100 and see how it goes and then drop it to 75. So if I had to wager, I would say between 75 and $100 is what regular comes back at. With a lean towards 75, in all honesty. I think they want to get back to that $75 price point on regular. I did the video yesterday where I kind of broke down all the math, and $50 doesn't sound like a big change from 200 to 150, but you could see the case where it does allow some more cards, or at least put more cards into consideration to go that route. And the more and more service levels that open up, you are going to continue to see that. And the more and more service levels that open up, the more reasonable pricing gets, turnaround times, all that stuff. There are going to be more and more cards that flock back to PSA. And I worry at that point for the more smaller grading companies. I don't know that there is enough to support all these grading companies that have popped up in the last 6 to 8 months. And once again, this is assuming that PSA gets back to a fully operational Death Star here in a year or so. But even in the short term, once they get regular back open again, that's going to take another big chunk of business away from somebody. Whether it's HGA, CSG, SGC. I don't know that anyone's actually using BGS. But the more service tiers that open up, the more people are going to grade with PSA. It's just a fact. People are going to see the resale value of PSA stuff, and they're going to want to chase that resale value. And as more tiers open up, more people are going to continue to send them cards. So you could see things start to shift back a different direction. But I think there's room for probably 3 to 4 grading companies. Anything beyond that, they would really have to carve out their little niche. PSA is the flipper's delight. BGS for thick cards. We talked about this a ton. I do think CSG has the corporate backing to have a long staying power and be viable. And then SGC has, the vintage backbone and a well-respected company. So I don't see them going anywhere. I really think HGA should double down on the PC side of things and make that their niche. Because I think if they try to compete on the grade to flip, that's going to overall be a problem with them. So word is they're still doing their AI reveal, so we'll see what happens with that when that comes around. Even though that show got canceled, I'm not sure what the plans are for that. So I'll be very curious to see what the mystical AI is that they are getting all the patents locked down for. So we have that to look forward to as well. I think that pretty much touches on all the major news stuff. There was the I don't want to go on a rant again, but there was the InvestiCard video as well. Yeah, I'm not even going down that path again. You guys could go watch that video. I don't want to have all the kids have to turn this one off too, like they did that one. So, yeah, let's go ahead and dive in the charts and graphs. But first, this video is sponsored by our wonderful friends over at MySlabs. And if you're not posting your cards on MySlabs, I don't really know what you're doing. If you just have them on eBay, you're making a massive mistake. List them both places or just use MySlabs. They've set records, I think, the last couple weeks in regards to sales, number of new users. So it does seem that their platform is beginning to gain a lot of traction, which makes a ton of sense. 3% goes to PayPal goods and services. MySlabs takes 1%. Buyer pays 1%. I mean, from a selling perspective, 1%, losing 1% plus 3% goods and services compared to 14% to eBay, no brainer. So we'll hear a quick word from our sponsor and then come back and dive into some charts and graphs.
Tired of paying 10%, 15%, or more to sell your cards, comics, and digital collectibles? How does 1% sound? Too good to be true? Well, not anymore. MySlabs.com is the web's premier user-driven marketplace for buying and selling slabbed cards, sealed wax, and now slabbed comics and digital collectibles. So the next time you're forced to pay 10% or more to sell something from your collection, head over to MySlabs.com and join the 1% revolution.
And once again, thank you for our pals over at MySlabs for sponsoring today's video. Let's go ahead and look at some charts and graphs, the best in the business. Let me read these off to you. Football, it's back. Starts later today. I am as excited as I have ever been for a Brown season to start. I'm sure that'll all change by about 7:30 p.m. later today, Eastern Standard Time. I'm actually running to the Cleveland Card Show this morning really quick and then hauling my butt back to be home in time for the 1 o'clock games to kick off. But we had Thursday Night Football. The first game of the season is in the books. The Cowboys played the Buccaneers. And Dak Prescott looked pretty good coming off his injury, even though they lost. He threw like 50-some passes, ran around a little bit. Cowboys offense looked explosive. CeeDee Lamb played well. Amari Cooper played well. Zeke Elliott, not so much. But, you know, kind of not completely unexpected given the Buccaneers defense. However, we immediately saw movement in Dak's prices. Dak was the one guy all offseason that I said, or one of the guys that I said looked just way too cheap compared to his peers. There was all the injury nonsense, you know, with the shoulder or whatever thing. All the experts basically said he'll be fine. Everybody relax. And his card prices immediately saw a nice bump right after the game. This is his PSA 10 Prism Silver, which in 2016, there was only silvers. There is no Prism base. Before the game was $717. After the game, up to $937. A nice almost 20% jump in a very quick amount of time. So up to $940 now with a nice bump there with people having confidence back in Dak after watching him sling it all over the field on Thursday night. And if this graph looks similar to the last one, that's because they're almost identical. This is his base paper Don Russ. Once again, this base Don Russ paper does really well in football, I noticed. Not so much in the other sports, but same thing here. We see a 26% jump for $60. Went from $240 to $304 basically overnight. Was in the mid to low 200s prior to the game and all the way up to 300 after the game. Now, we'll see if this holds. Does this level out and kind of stay there and through next week and then see what happens next week? Or is this a temporary spike? I don't know. But now, this is the smallest of small sample sizes. We'll know more next week. This seems to be playing into the narrative that a lot of us have been focused on lately, that players that play well equals card prices going up, at least temporarily. Like I said, we'll have to see how this plays out over a full week and then how it looks for weeks continuing, because no matter how well the player plays, eventually their stuff's going to hit a point where it's not going to keep going up. We saw this with Ohtani over the summer. He was going crazy, kept going up, kept going up, kept going up, got to the All-Star break, and then kind of came back down again. So, but Dak, the big mover in football this week by far. Once again, everyone else basically stays kind of flat. I'm sorry, this was his optic, not his Donruss base, but his Donruss base did the exact same thing as well. My fault. Donruss base, I thought that seemed kind of expensive. Donruss base went from 120 to 210, up 71%, up $90. So prior to the game was going for around 125, currently at 210. Statement still remains the same. This base Donruss stuff is very popular in football. And that was his optic I was referencing earlier that went from 240 to 300. Thought that made more sense based off the price points. So 3 different Dak cards all basically did the same thing. Had a major run up right after the game. And we'll see how the market holds with that going forward. Switching over to baseball. Looking at something a little different. I wanted to just kind of take a peek into Acuna just to kind of see what he's been doing over the last few months now. I have ran this chart from July 1st through today, September 11th, actually, as we are recording this video a day ahead. This sale right here is prior to him tearing the ACL. This sale right here is post him tearing the ACL. So this is the dip here. It went down, bottomed out at 370, got a little bounce back, went back down, sat under 400, a big run up here, which was even higher. It's kind of weird. Went back up to 600, came right back down again. But seems to have leveled out to slightly bouncing back up again. We see a 490, a 400, a 450, a 450. I was just curious what his stuff's been doing over the summer as people have forgotten about him. And it kind of goes back to, I made a video somewhere in here, I don't remember when, and I talked about the window to buy injured players at their absolute bottom is extremely narrow these days. And this does seem to, now that we're, months after, this chart does seem to back that up. We had the initial low here of around 370. And then it kind of went right back up again. This spiked a little too hard in my opinion. But then it re-leveled off at over 400. It did dip back down again. There is another 370-ish here. But other than that, everything's 400 or more. There are very few sub 400 sales. So once again, you had a very limited window within days after the injury. Basically a 1 week window after he tore his ACL to buy at the absolute bottom. And ever since then, it's been slightly above that point other than once. One sale here for 366, which is almost exactly what the low point was on 719. Everything else has been almost $400 or more, 450. So it seems to be leveling out in around that range, probably throughout the offseason, and then it'll get hyped probably leading in the next season, most likely. But I was just curious to see how long that window did stay open and if prices have ever gotten back to it. We'll see. Maybe it dips down again during the MLB offseason, but I feel like if it was going to dip, it just would have dipped by now. And most likely, a good portion of that is the people that we're going to sell have sold, which is what we talked about in that video prior. So just an interesting little pullback there. I was just curious to see how things looked. And it reflects in this. If you look at this is charting number of sales, which is a chart that I probably don't use often enough. You can see right after the ACL tear is when the most cards sold. This is only popped 1,200, so there's not a ton of them. But 5 sold right after the ACL injury, and then it's basically been a bunch of one-offs since. So everyone dumped that wanted to dump here, and then these are people probably just selling because they want money freed up for other stuff. Continuing down the baseball track, sorry for the little divergence there, but I was just kind of curious as I was poking around charts today to kind of see what his market had kind of done over the last 6 months or so, or not quite 6 months. Devers having a nice little bump up here. Probably one of the most underrated players in the baseball market. This is his Topps Chrome Refractor, PSA 10. Did have a nice little bump up this week, up 28%, up $47 from 160 to 210. They are well on their way to the playoffs, most likely as a wild card team. I think they have that top wild card spot pretty much on lockdown in the AL. And Devers' numbers are just super solid. He's got over 30 home runs. He's hitting under 300, but like I think high 270s to 280. has a decent WAR. Like it just he's having an all around very very good season, and his stuff just feels criminally undervalued given the price points. I only own one of his cards. I have a purple refractor out of 299 that I picked up at the National. I wouldn't. I feel like I missed the window on getting in on him at the absolute bargain basement prices. So maybe that'll be an off-season project. But Devers getting a nice little bump here this week, and he could be a player that sees a run up if he does well in the playoffs. There could be a window to sell him pretty high, but we'll see. His stuff still $200 for his refractor seems just like a very very good deal. Oh, Vladdy. This is his pink refractor. His base refractor, one just hasn't sold recently to give us a comparable comp. I just talked about him last week saying, man, I'm so excited to buy a Vlad Guerrero Jr. dip. And then what do? They rip off like 7 or 11 straight wins or something stupid. And he's hitting out of his mind again. And his card prices went right back up again. So I feel like I already missed the window just in the last week. This is his pink refractor. It was $285 to start the week. Ends at $460, up $175 for a 60% bounce back. This is going back a little further than a week to 9-4. But they are a machine. I don't know that they're going to make the playoffs. I think they're like a game or a half game behind the Yankees, depending on when you're watching this and what happens in the wide world of baseball. But the Blue Jays are on an absolute tear. Part of me wants them to get in because I don't know. I really like Vlad. I've become kind of semi-attached to him, even though I don't actually own a Vlad card right now after having the blue in my possession. But from a buying perspective of wanting to buy into Vlad, I kind of hope they miss and I could buy a dip in the offseason. He is probably my number one offseason target, to be honest with you, in regards to baseball players that I'm going to be keeping a close eye on as we move through the football season and people tend to forget about the baseball market there in the middle of winter. His running mate. I'm not gonna throw him in the Devers category. Devers is a better player, most likely. But when it comes to undervalued guys, Bichette. Bo Bichette's having a really, I think, forgotten season. I think it's very overshadowed by Vlad. But this is his PSA 10 refractor. Once again, this is a 2-week pull on this chart. Up 20% from 120 to 143. 150 for a base refractor of a good young player just seems, I don't know. Anything sub $200 intrigues me on baseball refractors for good players. And that Blue Jays team's really good and a lot of fun. Once again, I'm not sure that I'm diving in the buy-in right now. I'm going to wait and see how this playoff thing filters out for them. Hope that they miss and maybe look to grab some Bo on the dip in the offseason as well. But I'm intrigued by him. He had a really, really good season this year, and I can see him growing on that. And that's a tough lineup to get through, man. Basketball. Let's hit on a couple basketball cards and then wrap this puppy up so we could all go set some DFS lineups and fantasy football lineups for the day. Gonna hit on a couple key players. Morant. And I went back a little further on these. I feel like sometimes stuff gets lost in the shuffle. I've talked about this before when you only look at these things weekly. So for this particular chart, I ran this back 30 days just to get a better feel for what the market's been doing with these guys. Ja Morant Prism Silver over the last 30 days is way up. Up $475, 47% jump over the last 30 days. Optic Hollow, not as much, but that's because one has not sold in almost 2 weeks. Last one did 700, but you could see it has been a hot minute since one sold. So I don't know. If you could get one at this price, more power to you, but I don't think you're going to be able to find one at 670 because I feel like that should be comping higher. You have to do the math on that to see what number makes sense. But with this being up so much in the same time frame, I'm not saying that this should exactly mirror this, but that's probably too big of a gap there. But yeah, Josh stuff on the move. Also, Zion stuff on the move. This is his silver PSA 10 Prism. Once again, I ran this back 30 days. I'm sorry. This is 14 days on this one. Silver Prism up $700 in the last 2 weeks, 20% jump. And his Optic Hollow from $1,300 to almost $1,550. So a $250 jump, almost 20% as well on Zion. And then last but not least, our boy Trae Young. It looks like there might be, we talked about this a couple months or like a month or two ago. I went on a buying spree. I hate to buy more Trae Young, but this might make a little too much sense. His PSA 10 Silver Prism, this is going back since September 1st. PSA 10 over the last almost 2 weeks, up 20% from just under $1,400 to almost $1,700. His 9 is actually down $30 from $400 to $365. This is about what I paid for mine about a month ago when I bought the 3. I think my cost average on those was $370 out the door on the 3 that I purchased. I got like one for $360, one for $380, and like one for $370. I don't remember the exact numbers. I'm pretty sure they averaged out to about $370 on the 3. This is way too big of a gap, in my opinion. What is the ratio on that? 4.63. That is too large, especially because these have comparable pop counts. It's not like it's one of those situations where it skews heavy or the 10s are very limited compared to the 9s, that sort of thing. These are very balanced out. So if this is going to be a $1,700 card, this should be a lot more than $365. So I still think there's nice room here on the Silver Prism PSA 9 if you can get it anywhere close to that price, especially with this going way up. This just feels like a mistake with that being priced where it is. You can see the purple line, pink line is on its way up. The blue line is on its way down. And you even back here, look at how much closer together they were. $1,375 and $400. That makes a little bit more sense. Now they've split apart. This has gone up and this has actually gone down. This once again looks like a pretty decent buying opportunity has opened up here on Trae. I'm just curious if I blow this back further. Yeah, when you look at it this way, look at how this has climbed up, the PSA 10 over that time period, and the 9 has dipped. You don't really see that a ton. One goes up, the other one kind of follows along with it. So, definitely a potential buying opportunity there on Trae Silver PSA 9s. Glad I got into those around that price point. I still feel really good about buying at that price point. So that's all I have for you guys and girls today. Enjoy the first full day of football. I will be, like I said, hitting the Cleveland Card Show this morning, most likely. So I'll be cruising through there probably quickly to leave myself enough time to get home to make any last minute tinkering. And we'll see how the football market does. We will see what happens after week 1. I think what I'm going to do tomorrow's video, I think I'm going to do a deep dive on Marvel cards and grading to see if anything's shaken loose on potential avenues to grade Marvel stuff. I got that question in the live stream on Friday night, and I did not have time during the live stream to sit there and research it. So I'm going to dig in and see if we can find anything, dig into some data, kind of similar to the video yesterday, but more specifically for Marvel cards. So that'll be Monday's video. Tuesday, I am not sure yet. And then maybe Wednesday, I would kind of like to do a post week 1 market update, but I'm not sure how soon's too soon. So maybe we'll shoot for Wednesday on that. I would like to get at least a full day or 2 of sales. So Monday, I would probably record Tuesday nights. Yeah, maybe Wednesday, maybe even Thursday. I would just like to get a couple days worth of sales post week 1, just to kind of see how the market shifts. So maybe we'll start doing a weekly football thing. Just kind of touching on, the market from the last week of the NFL week just to kind of see what happens. Maybe we'll try that for the first week or 2 and see how it goes. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys and girls. Like, comment, subscribe, all the YouTube stuff down below. Don't forget to check out My Slabs, and don't forget to check out Market Movers if you are looking for a data tool. Have a wonderful football Sunday. Catch you guys and girls on the next one. Peace.